Today down in the comments, I want to hear about a movie that you like that nobody else you know seems to. Everyone seems to dislike it or hate it, or they don't like that movie, but you enjoy it. Tell me about it down in the comments, because we're going to be talking about differing opinions today. Hello, I'm Adam Caesar. This is Project Black T-Shirt, the channel where we talk about new or reissue horror movies and then pair them with a piece of horror fiction that you will enjoy reading if you like those movies. If you like this video, hit like and be sure to subscribe for more videos like it. I am the author of several books, many horror novels and novellas, including the young adult smash hit Clown in the Cornfield, out now at all bookstores, anywhere you can get books. Anywhere you can order books online, it's there too. Since recording my last video, this book showed up on the preliminary ballot for the Stoker Awards, the Horror Writers Association, the big award they give every year. It's not on the final ballot yet. We'll find that out towards the end of this month. But I just really want to thank everyone who's a member of the HWA who read this book and checked it out and put my name in the hat. I really, really appreciate it. I feel like a winner already, and I'm very proud of this book. And I don't talk about it as much, but I also wrote the words to this this beautiful hardcover, fully illustrated bestiary based on The Dark Crystal, Jim Henson's and Frank Oz's film The Dark Crystal, and the TV show, and all the other tie-in stuff. But this was mentioned on the Locust magazine, the big sci-fi fantasy magazine and reviews magazine. They put this on the recommended reading list for this year, which I think means that it can be voted on for the Locust Awards. So big congratulations to Iris Compete, who illustrated not only the cover and the interior, but like did hundreds and hundreds of sketches and traditional watercolor paintings. It's a real testament to her talent that this book has been getting the acclaim that it has, and I'm very proud to be a very small part of it. So check that out if you're a fan of Jim Henson. Pretty good news for a guy who's about to talk to you for like 25 minutes about B-movies from the 80s. Today we're going to talk about a bunch of movies. We're going to talk about the movies that Vinegar Syndrome released fairly recently. We're going to talk about every movie they released in January, not counting the VSA or the associated titles like the AGFA stuff. Although I will recommend, if you are a Something Weird video fan and The Curious Dr. Hump was one of your favorites, it's one of those things. If you've heard of a movie called The Curious Dr. Hump and you're a fan of a movie called The Curious Dr. Hump, you know if you're the target demographic for this Blu-ray. But yeah, we're going to talk about all three January titles, and then we're going to talk about Silent Madness because I want to. Even though I think it was a December title. I think it might have been the Black Friday announcement title. But we're going to talk about these because I actually watched all the January releases within the month of January when they were released, which is a rarity. And I know that it's like February when I'm talking about this, but give me a break. That's pretty good. First movie we're going to talk about is spoiler alert. I'm going to talk about these in ascending order of how much I like them. This is Dark Tower. It is a movie that has, not only as a Stephen King fan does it have the coolest title, but it has like the coolest art and the coolest premise. This is about a haunted skyscraper in Barcelona, and it was partially shot, partially directed by Freddie Francis, the fantastic British director, fantastic and prolific British director, who we've talked about on the channel before. I'll put a link to some of the Freddie Francis videos we did. But also co-directed with Jim Wiederhorn, which there's no real special features on here that tell you much context about this movie. And that's kind of one of the reasons this was my least favorite of the January releases. I just really wish there was I wasn't going on Wikipedia or other people's blogs to figure out what the heck was going on with this movie. Yes, haunted skyscraper in Barcelona. It opens really strong. We focus on the architect of the skyscraper, and she's like overseeing the building. Bad supernatural things are happening around her, and we don't really know why. It's kind of a mystery, and then it's revealed at the end why these bad supernatural things are happening around her. And the cop who's investigating this, cop or private investigator, it's actually I'm unclear, but they make a point of being like there's this American investigator in actually maybe he's private security. He's private security for the people that are building the construction site. Played by Michael Moriarty, a kind of constant Larry Cohen collaborator. You probably know him. He's a very, very oddball actor, and he's very, very oddball in this. And you kind of get the impression he is so much that way. He's turned his Michael Moriarty-ness up to like 11 in this movie, kind of because the movie's a little bit dull and a little bit of a slog. But if you are any kind of completionist, or if that idea sounds interesting, there's like just enough enjoyment in this movie. There's just enough location shooting in Barcelona. There's just enough weird. There's a whole section where Michael Moriarty like tracks down psychic investigators to help him. Like he doesn't. It doesn't take very long for the cop to know that like there's something supernatural happening in the skyscraper. So there's none of those like kind of boy who cried wolf scenes. There's just him being like, "There's ghosts here. I have to figure it out." And he gets these psychic investigators involved, and there's just enough kind of weirdness and Shaggy Dog like stuff. And then there's effects towards the end. There's a really kind of thrilling section towards the last 10 minutes. Like the first 10 minutes, the last 10 minutes are great, and then everything in the middle is just white walls and kind of boring. Doesn't really thrill you. But there's still enough that I wanted to talk about. I only really talk about stuff that I either enjoy or can halfway recommend on the channel. This is one of those things where if you're looking at all 4 of these releases and you're interested in them, this is the one I would add to cart last. Next up, we are going to talk about Cthulhu Mansion. What I really liked about this month and why I really wanted to do them in a single video is that they're all shot in Spain. Two of them are Spanish directors, and one of them is a British director hanging out in Spain, like an international co-production in English. But I like the fact that Vinegar Syndrome seems to be doing more Euro horror. They did the Forgotten Giallo box sets that they're doing a third one of. They really seem to be moving more in that direction while still playing to their kind of base and playing to their strengths of American oddities and American kind of lost films from the 70s and 80s. We talked a little bit about the Ruben Galindo Jr. movies they've been doing. They did like 3 of his better known films from Mexico, and they're just really expanding that kind of international feel to the line. Cthulhu Mansion is a movie I'd never heard of, and with a title like Cthulhu Mansion, you kind of think I would, being a fan of horror fiction. It's a little bit of a fake out though. You think that this is going to be a H.P. Lovecraft adaptation, and it's really not. It's kind of like your typical occultism or Satanism, your typical, like, I guess, Judeo-Christian satanic worship kind of monsters and demons and ghosts with a little bit of a Lovecraft patina thrown onto it. But that said, I really, really like this movie. We start by focusing on a magician, and it's this older gentleman, and we watch a little bit of his show until he has his beautiful assistant start levitating, and then something goes wrong with the trick, and she bursts into flames. She dies on stage, and everyone's running out of the theater. So that's kind of your cold open. And then we catch up with him a few years later, while at the same time he's performing at this amusement park or carnival, where like a drug deal has just gone bad and someone's been murdered at this carnival. So we have these 2 parallel stories link up. The bad guys, the drug dealers, some of them aren't really bad guys. They're just kind of like mixed up kids. They kidnap the magician, the magician's new assistant, his daughter, and the magician's other assistant, like his stagehand, and they get him to bring him back to his mansion. All of this culminates in a kind of almost Evil Dead-like supernatural calamity, where the fact that these violent teenagers are in this house like awakens the ancient evil that this magician has been trying to keep a lid on since his wife died. I'm a really big fan of this movie. I think you kind of get everything you want a little bit. There's never 10 minutes that doesn't go by without like a cool visual effects gag or a little bit of gore or a little bit of monster makeup. It slows down a little bit in the middle. It feels a little padded in the middle as like characters are like walking in and out of rooms, not realizing that they are in grave mortal danger. But it's got such a nice feeling to it. It's got such a nice kind of late 80s, like really late 80s. It might even have been released in 1990. Late 80s kind of cabin in the woodsy, kids getting into supernatural trouble feel to it. But if you go into it thinking you're getting a kind of straight Lovecraft adaptation, you're not at all. You're not even getting something really that close to like the American Lovecraft adaptations that we all know and love, like Stuart Gordon. It's not even that Stuart Gordon-y. It's a little bit more staid and calm than that. So just know that going in. Directed by Juan Picure-Simon, who did Pieces and Slugs and a bunch of other movies. It's a minor movie in his canon, but still a heck of a lot of fun. And the Vinegar Syndrome disc comes with a 90-minute documentary about the director. This is I don't know the special features producers because it is a Spanish language feature documentary. They have a 45-minute doc on the Satan's Blood disc. Both of them feel like they could be a little shorter. They could, but if you really want an exhaustive trip into what made Juan Picure-Simon tick, there's a whole other movie on this disc for you. Not to be self-conscious about my opinions, I do know I have a friend who didn't like this movie as much as I did. Justin, his channel is Film Trap. I'll put a link up to his video where he talks about the other January releases that I didn't get to in this video, but he does talk about Cthulhu Mansion as well, and he did not like it as much as I did. So that if you want a second opinion, go over and watch Justin's video. Now we're going to talk about my favorite movie from the January releases before we get to the American slasher goodness of Silent Madness. This is Satan's Blood. If you are familiar with this title, it is probably because there was a Mondo Macabro DVD way back when. I remember buying, back when they had when they sold them in stores, and back when they had the red case, not just on the limited edition ones, but on their DVDs as well. I remember getting this movie, and I'm pretty sure I bought this at Best Buy, which when you watch it now, you're like, wow, how could this have been sold at an American Best Buy in the New York suburbs? But it was. Satan's Blood. It's got this beautiful Frazetta-esque illustration. It might even be Frazetta, I don't even know. Replicated on the slipcover. This movie rules. I love it. Where Cthulhu Mansion was a Spanish lens film that's like using American actors, I'm pretty sure shot in English because there is no other dub track on there. There is no Spanish language track on that disc. Satan's Blood is a actual Spanish movie, filmed in Spanish, and I watched it in the Spanish language with English subtitles. What a movie. It starts with this kind of stand-up interview with an academic that kind of tells you about like the history of black masses and that like Satanism is real and it's all over this country, which a little bit ruins the actual surprise of the movie as to what's going on, because then we focus on our heroes, who are this young married couple. They've been trying to have a baby. They've had difficulties with that. The wife is finally pregnant again, and we follow them. They're just leaving their apartment for the day in Madrid, and they run into this other couple where the guy is just like, oh, don't you remember me from school? We went to school together. And it's this really interesting kind of horror, this interesting kind of creep out where it reminds me of almost something like Aronofsky's Mother, where it's that like horror of like social obligation, where he's like, oh, you remember me? I'm your old high school friend. Don't you remember this teacher we had together? And like the details are all a little off, but because of that like feeling of social obligation, this couple follows them outside of Madrid to this sprawling mansion / townhouse outside of Madrid, where it's completely secluded. And they've got their dog in the car with them, and they go to this house and things get weirder and weirder, and then finally kind of get supernatural. But it is, as far as like satanic cult movies go, it's really, really great. It's really actively creepy. This is 1978. It's remarkable how little cheese, how little fromage has grown on this over the years. It really works. It's very creepy. This isn't going to be for everyone because it was famously classificado S for sex. So, but it's pretty tame in those standards but just know that it is a movie that was marketed on that and does have quite a bit of that. But it is a creepy, weird, well-made movie that I really just seeing this again after the Mondo Macabro disc. It looks like $1 million. The transfer is incredible. I really like this. The last film we're going to talk about, I'm pretty sure this was one of their bigger releases of the Black Friday sale. It was one of their secret releases. This is Silent Madness in 3D, and that's part of the title. This is the first 3D Blu-ray that Vinegar Syndrome has released. I do not have a Real D 3D TV. I have a nice TV. It's great. And I'm not a big 3D person, but seeing something like this release makes me really envious of my friends that do have the kind of Real D 3D glasses. This is a 2-disc set that comes with the movie in 3 different formats. It comes with it in Real D, like the 3D that you don't need the colored glasses for. It comes with a flat 2D version of it. And then it comes with, and this is the important part, 2 pairs of red and blue anaglyph 3D glasses. Now, I am such a snob and such a difficult person that when I saw that it came with these, I was like, this is going to change the whole color of the film. I'd probably rather watch it flat 2D, see what the colors of the movie actually are, see what the movie's like, enjoy the film straight through without any kind of gimmick, and then I'll put in the anaglyph 3D version, and I'll put on the glasses, and I'll check it out, and I'll check out a few scenes, kind of spot check them. I really wish I hadn't done that. The anaglyph 3D on this disc, it's not really a gimmick. It works. It looks really good. At least it did. At least it did on my TV. And yes, you're losing the kind of colors, the natural colors the movie had. But then you realize, oh, when this movie was released or when this movie was shot, it was intended to be seen with glasses like this. So they kind of knew that they were sacrificing that aspect of the film, and the 3D in it and the 3D effects and the attention to detail paid to the 3D gags in this movie are very good and very impressive. And then you watch the kind of 45-minute making of documentary directed by Michael Gingold. Really good retrospective documentary, but you hear about the kind of horrors that they had to go through to get the 3D exactly right. They had this great 3D cinematographer. They had all these technicians. They had the top of the line 3D camera at the time, and they were measuring out all these shots. They're making sure everything has depth and perspective to it. And then when the movie originally came out, and this is the producer claiming in this, but it came out like a week or two after Nightmare on Elm Street. Nightmare on Elm Street was such a hit that it got held over in all the theaters that this was supposed to premiere in, and this was supposed to be in 3D. So barely anyone saw this in 3D when it originally came out. I haven't talked about the plot. The plot is the bare minimum. The plot is basically this cover. The plot is basically the poster. A patient in an insane asylum, is let free because of a clerical error and because of mismanagement at the psychiatric hospital. Our good doctor, our good psychiatrist, notices this problem. She's our hero. She's on the search to find this guy before he kills again, because he was the main suspect in these sorority massacres that happened years and years ago. And he's going back to that college in Binghamton, New York, which is part of its Staten Island. But he's going upstate to go find more sorority girls to possibly kill in a very 3D heavy way. But that's it. It has such a charm to it and such a kind of interesting structure. Even though it's the most kind of meat and potato setup you can think of, there's so much care put into this. I feel like the effort that went into making this movie 3D and producing a quality 3D film is kind of mirrored by how oddball and how kind of different the setup is and the execution is. It's not Friday the 13th 3D, which is one of the best 3D slasher films, the best 3D slasher film, the kind of the gold standard. But it is a really interesting kind of companion piece to that film. It's got a fun slasher. It has a really good reveal towards the end. It has a lot of location shooting. They shot in this for the asylum and then for doubling for a bunch of other other locations. They shot in this giant high rise that was like partially abandoned, where they shot part of Toxic Avenger. They go into all this on the special features, but it's a real time capsule of kind of New York and New Jersey lower budget filmmaking. I really, really, really like Silent Madness. I basically reviewing this just as a word of warning. If you got this disc, or if you're going to get this disc and you haven't checked it out yet, I would not do what I did. I would watch the Anaglyph 3D version if you have a choice. My buddy Matt watched it in Real D, and he was like, yeah, it's great to see it in 3D with actually the correct colors. But if you don't have a TV that can do that, I would suggest starting with the 3D version. It's really fun. This week's book recommendation is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. This is a huge book, 600 and something pages in the hardcover. It is a book that I heard about. I was doing a panel, and the moderator, William Carl, suggested this to the panelists. And it's just not typically the kind of thing I read, especially because I'm somewhat avoidant of long books. But this is, I'm more than halfway through it, which is, enough of the book to know that I want to talk about it and recommend it and be like, well, what are you reading now, Adam? This is incredibly hard to synopsize. This is a novel about the adaptation of a fictional book that has more than three, but three main characters, and we see them trying to adapt this book. It's the big star, the big hot new star who's attached to play one of the main characters. The kind of ex-child star, not as big a star, who's playing the second lead, and then the author of the novel that the movie is based on that they're trying to make. And the book that they're adapting is about this true story, true within the world of the book, of these girls at a girls' prep school who were in love and died in this very tragic, very graphic way. And this is a huge novel with multiple timeline and perspective kind of switches, with a narrator that is quasi, not unreliable, but like inserting herself into the story in an interesting way, and commenting on things in an interesting way. All that said, and as confusing as that sounds, the great part about this book is A, it has a lot of subtly creepy things happening pretty consistently. B, it never feels confusing, and it never feels like, oh, this is a book that's big and important, and feels like it's being written from a perspective of being big and important. It's constantly entertaining. It's quite funny in parts. And the third thing that I like about this, and this is the one that I have to be careful because it could get me in a little bit of trouble, just based on other authors being offended. But I've read so many books that try to kind of encapsulate Hollywood, or like the Hollywood experience, and it always seems like such a unrealistic view of how modern movies are made and how modern Hollywood seems to work, or at least my understanding of it, or an oversimplified view of how movies are made or how movies work. What I like about this book is that like half of it's about like production troubles and like pre-production troubles and drama and like people getting upset and egos, which seems very, very realistic to me. A lot of books that have tried to tackle subject matter like this feel either too simplified or too outside of the knowledge, or too unrealistic. Not that this is a realist novel, but it does feel lived in. It feels correct, and I think that's because I don't know much about the author, but Emily M. Danforth, her first book was adapted into a movie, and it feels almost like this is almost semi-autobiographical, or at least she's taking that portion of her experience with adaptation and putting it into this book. But yeah, I paired this with these movies just because I'm reading this right now. It has nothing. This is like the absolute opposite of Silent Madness. Although one character, the former child star, her mother, is a former scream queen who they keep bringing up this series of films that she had kind of stepped into the Jamie Lee Curtis type role later in the series. So there is a slasher element to it, but it's not really in the book itself, not really in the plot itself. But yeah, I really enjoying this. I'm very excited to see where the hell it goes. But it's not a light beach read, but also is probably lighter than you're thinking when you pick it up in the store and you can kind of bludgeon someone with it. Yeah, so that's Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. If you want to check out any of the books I talked about, if you want to check out any of the movies I talk about, as always, I've got links down in the description. Amazon and direct from Vinegar Syndrome and our friends Diabolic DVD. I'll put all the links. If you want to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff, I'll put all that down there. And that's it. I'll see you next week, and we'll talk about more movies next week.